Something I've been trying to do is show y'all another way. On both my Facebook and here on YouTube, I share a lot of stuff for, um, for people who want to learn about how to safely manage their tools, I should say. Some of it is as far as your mental health, some of it is as far as protecting yourself. I mean, there's a lot to cover. If you pay attention to the world around you, you get to learn quite a bit. Um, a lot of the stuff that I've been showing recently is to try to protect you from something you might not have thought about, such as your toys looking like real firearms. That's a very dangerous thing, especially right now. We have people who are buying up guns and ammo in record numbers. I mean, never before in American history has it come so quickly. And this is something we're hearing about increasingly. A lot of these loopholes that allow the wrong people to get a hold of the wrong stuff and do the wrong things with it. Now, sure, you got most of the people out there who aren't going to go doing something crazy with it. Mostly, it's people who are paranoid, and a lot of those people are paranoid from experience or from what they're getting shoved at. I mean, look at the news. Do you really want to watch the news? Does it make you feel good when you get done watching the news? Do you feel good about the world that you live in? Do you feel good about your position in life? A lot of the stuff that I've been trying to show is stuff that's not firearms. Here in Nebraska, these guys have an obsession with it. Like they say, I just want to go out target shooting, but they don't want to do it with a Nerf. They don't want to fire something that they can pick up and put back and use it again. See, that's the thing, is that these things are dangerous if they're not properly cared for or properly paid attention to. You can reduce the risk by using something else. A super soaker. I mean, those things don't look a thing like the real thing, do they? No, they don't. They got a big old bubble on them with all these brightly colored straps and friggin' tube pumpy see-through thingies. And yeah, you know exactly what's coming out of the other end of that. It's called water. But the scary thing about that also is that there's a lot of paranoid people who are panic buying that don't know what to do with it. Once they get a hold of this thing, they're not safe with it because they haven't had any safety courses with it. A lot of these folks have been completely paranoid of firearms their whole lives. They should not have them in their hands. There's a few ladies that I know who carry firearms with them now, and I'm pretty sure at least two of them do not have permits to do so, but they're paranoid. You know what they did before they carried one of those things in their purse? They carried pepper spray. And they said, I'll never own one of those things. I'll never own one of those things. And now they are so incredibly paranoid. There's a lot of people here in western Nebraska who are afraid that black people are going to come raid the area or some stupid thing like that. I'm like, are you? These people think that I'm crazy. Seriously. But then you look at a lot of these people who do own firearms. We are talking about millions of firearms. There are more firearms owned by civilians in the United States than there are civilians. So when you think about that and you really want to do the mathematics about it, How difficult is it going to be to get rid of all of those? And that's just the ones that are registered. Now, don't get me wrong. The law is meant to keep the honest person honest. But if we, as we've seen with predators such as Ted Bollinger, you may want to be as honest as you want. He's still going to find a way to get one. I like this dream that people have of melting them all down into something else. I devoted almost a year of my life to figuring out how to do that. What it all came down to is really you do have to melt it down and turn it into something else. Literally, military technology is too mission specific. Now we got a lot of stuff, especially here on YouTube, where they're trying to shut down education about it. For a lot of people, the only education that they're able to get, especially right now with this lockdown, is from the internet, from YouTube, from Facebook, even. And these outlets and platforms do not allow much of that in many cases. We've got people who don't even know how to run a machine. They're using drills to try to make stuff that, yeah, dude, you're doing something bad, and it's probably illegal, and you get in a lot of trouble. And I completely understand the fact that at this point in time, the way that stuff is looking, I do understand why you're paranoid enough that you're willing to risk that. I do. But also, I want to show you that there are alternatives. Like, instead of always looking for a fight in that scenario, why don't you just worry about taking care of yourself? Go off in the woods. Everything that you need is provided up there. All it takes is, and you could watch Todd's stuff, TODSSTUFF. He educates about like a lot of um, ancient armor and bows and crossbows and stuff like that. Just ancient history or medieval history, history of the Dark Ages, the implements that were used. But if you look at that, you realize that you don't need to go buy something from a gun store. Not even close. You can learn the skills required to do what it is that he teaches you how to do on his videos. You can learn the skills required to do that in a weekend. After that, you can do whatever you need to up in the mountains with whatever you get your hands on. And there's very, very minimal stuff that you can't learn on your own or figure out on your own. It'd be important to take a Boy Scout handbook. That's something that I am surprised everybody is not buying up right now, is the Boy Scout handbook. Now, I get nobody wants to support the Boy Scouts, and we all know why. It's the same reason that nobody wants to support a certain. God, how do I even say that without offending someone of the religious sort into trying to get this blocked? That's difficult too, isn't it? How not to offend the most offensive people and the most easily offended. There's a lot of things that I've shown, like Sonic Dad, and um, let's see, some of these airsoft Nerf things, and Super Soakers. I've tried to show you all a lot of safe alternatives for if you're just going to be out plinking or messing around. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that you can do that are actually a lot cheaper too. When it comes to home defense, it's nice to think that that's something that you need to train for 24/7. Some people do that. And they will have an advantage in a very specific set of scenarios that may or may not happen. That's the problem with a lot of doomsday preppers. They didn't prepare mentally necessarily. They thought, oh, well, this is the most likely thing to happen, in my opinion. And then they're woefully unprepared because, well, you can plan for whatever you want, but life is going to happen no matter what you plan. When it comes to what you're teaching your kids, a lot of y'all, it doesn't occur to you that when they're pointing a water gun at somebody else, that you should tell them, hey, that is not okay. You should start with that. Start with, even if it's a toy, do not treat it as a toy. Do not treat it in that fashion. You pick up a bad habit, you bring that into adulthood. Kind of like when you tell your daughter you got a bad habit of telling her on the playground when that little boy hits her, oh, he only hit you because he liked you. Please don't teach her that. Violence ain't love. It's not. If someone that you love is harming you, it is still okay for you to defend yourself. But also, if you try to do what the New Testament tells us to do, love one another as I have loved you, you don't want to do those things. You don't have the desire to do those things. And as long as you don't watch the news, then again, how do you not watch the news? How do you avoid that? How do you avoid those conversations with the people that do? Um, some of the stuff with Sonic Dad, that's stuff that you guys can do at home while you're on lockdown. You can do some of those things with your own kids. That's what Sonic Dad is designed for. Is for parents to sit down and do stuff with their kids. Their projects are not expensive. They're extremely cheap. There's also the King of Random. He's got a lot of projects with Sonic Dad that are pretty cool. Um, Sonic Dad isn't a person; it's a website, and all of their stuff is free. It's open source. Is that right? Open. They make it for you guys for free. The instructions, how to make stuff out of everything from popsicle sticks to paper clips to rubber bands to super glue to just a lot of really cool stuff. With a basic set of hand tools, and I mean a set of hand tools that can fit in something the size of a firearm holster. With that set of tools, you can take care of a lot more needs than a firearm is going to take care of. You're less likely to harm yourself or somebody else on accident if you're not carrying one of those things. You get it snagged on a bush, you get it, uh, snagged on your car keys, you hit it wrong when you're putting your keys in your pocket, any number of things can happen. And people go, well, that's never going to happen. I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. Nobody ever plans on having an accident. There are a lot of people who are no longer breathing because they had accidents on the road. They didn't plan on having an accident, it just happened. You can reduce the chance of having those accidents by, first of all, you make sure that the thing isn't loaded and you don't take it anywhere with you. But then you enter the problem of a lot of people want to do the concealed carry thing because they're paranoid that at any point in time we could have another Eric Harris or Dylan Klebold. Now, if we look at how many people are committing these crimes versus how many gun owners there really aren't a whole lot of people committing these crimes by comparison. Of course, if you look at how many people are taken out by knives every year, that's even fucking scarier. I've had more friends that died of being stabbed than being shot. But also, the first time that you hand somebody something like that, you're extremely wary. And I don't know how many times I've seen somebody with a live one in their hands moving like this. Like, oh my God, you're pointing it at people. Your finger's on the trigger. You're being very dangerous. You are putting all of our lives at risk. Before you do anything like that, you need to take a hunter's safety course. That's at least that's what it's called here in Nebraska. Different states call it something different. You're going to want to look that up. But you got to get past your infatuation with stuff that goes boom. Just because it's not going to kill somebody doesn't mean it can't be fun. Just because my Nerf isn't going to put anybody in the ground doesn't mean it's not just as fun for me. But then, like, I get people making fun of me, going, "Dude, I'm an adult, man. You're fucking 40 years old playing with fucking toys." Well, I ain't got no kids. A lot of y'all with kids, that's your excuse to play with toys. That's the problem with adults. They start off just fine. They're kids. Everything about them is right. And the older they get, the more we teach them to be stupid and shove a bunch of crap in their heads that is completely unnecessary. Children are not born with racism. Children are not born with sexism. They are taught that. And culturally, we can see how different areas teach different things to their boys and their girls. Here in the United States, people like to make fun of Mexico or look down on Mexico. Like the big thing here is, well, the machismo, the macho thing. Well, all these people are evil because of this and because of that. And that's Nebraska. A bunch of people blaming folks that don't actually exist here. I'm fighting for y'all to not be ignorant if you choose not to be ignorant. Star Magia typed, found Sonic Dad. Thanks for sharing that. You're welcome. Um, a lot of the stuff that I learned about in my spare time, my special interest is basically how to do everything without computers, TVs, and electricity. Most of the tools I bought were toward that end as well. I wanted to get a chunk of property in the mountains, move up there with my hand tools, and I literally learned how to do a lot of stuff that nobody knows how to do this day and age. I learned how to make my own hearth. I learned how to make it out of dirt. I learned how to make it out of the way that the natural terrain allows in multiple different terrains. I mean, you look at regionally where different ancient cultures were and the materials that they had available to them. They built with that. The castle was built on a quarry. A lot of people think that a castle was just put up on a strategic outcrop and that was good enough. No, you had to go survey the land, see what was there, and find a quarry. To build a castle, you got to bring every single one of those stones in by cart, and you're not able to carry in, especially the outside, casements. You're talking about one, maybe two per cartload. You're not talking about a semi coming in with a whole bunch of them. By building on top of the quarry, that also allows you to build on top of a solid foundation of stone. You can basically cut your walls out of the moat. Some of the best castles, the ones that survive to this day, matter of fact, a lot of them are built that way. But The thing with Todd's stuff, his channel, it teaches you a lot of myths that you guys have. He's an educator first and foremost. That's what his intent and purpose is. He wants to teach you about history. He wants to get you involved in history. It's called. Hold on a second. I should know the name of this. It's archaeology, but it's where they learn about it through building. Like a lot of these places in Norway, and a lot of people in the United States, matter of fact, are building Viking ships too. They built one back during the 1960s in uh, Ireland, and they also have built several all over the world. People are having a renaissance of these old ships, like the El Hermione. That's the ship that the Marquis de Lafayette came over here from France on when he came to return with good word. And that word was that, well, the French were going to join our side. And that was some incredible news. You know, this was back when the Constitution was, those words, we the people, inspired an entire nation. There were a lot of people here who were royalists. And after the war, they left. They left. They lost. They didn't want to be here anymore. They didn't feel safe, and they left. Now things are a lot tighter. The borders are a lot tighter. And also, when somebody who has a badge decides that they got your number, they can break the law. They can turn off their body cameras, do what they want. And this does scare a lot of people. I get it. The people that they're victimizing the most are the people who have the most need of being able to defend themselves because nobody else is going to defend them. Now, here in Chapel, Nebraska, yeah, if there was a armed posse surrounding some black folks' house because they didn't like them, I believe that for the first time in Chapel, Nebraska's history, there might be more people showing up to say, hey, this ain't gonna fly. You guys need to get the hell out of here. These are still human beings, especially younger folks. There's a lot of people that I met that said, you know, when I got this job or I got that job, you know, they're talking about working with special needs people. And they say, hey, Sean, when I got that job, knowing you helped me a lot in that job. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I learned just from being your friend that I was able to take to work every single day. Now, a lot of people might take a look at what I've been showing and go, oh, well, it's all guns. Well, none of them are real guns. None. None of them are made with the intent and purpose of harming another human being. Not a single one. Matter of fact, my intent with them is to save lives. That Nerf thing on the wall can be used to teach a youngster how to be safe with that, sure. But it can also be used to teach an adult to be safer with it. I mean, I'd rather have a mishap with a piece of foam than I would with a 223. That's just scary to me. Jay Richardson typed, can you see our comments, Sean? Yes, I can, Jay Richardson. A lot of the things that I'm educating myself on right now, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know how to do because it's not what interested me. There's a lot of people who are overwhelmed by your world. I was trying to find a safe place away from all of this. But then what ended up happening is that I have to spend a lot of resources on things like this because I am constantly in danger. and not by my choice. Some people wanted to sell a very nasty narrative because they were embarrassed, and nobody bothered to fact check it. There's also the fact that there's a lot of stuff that was on my emails and stuff that was, well, withheld for long periods of time. And this whole time, I'm trying to tell people, hey, I have to worry about actual dangerous predators. Well, they're using nasty excuses like pretending that I had a water pistol that I got for 88 cents at Walmart that was filled with jalapeno juice. It's because I didn't have enough to get one of, let me show you, these right here. Yes, I love the color pink. I have a lot of stuff that's pink. Get over it. Um, this is what I carry. This and a whistle. Matter of fact, I might pull out my keys and show you my whistle. Usually it's in my pocket, but I've had the heater on today, and it's actually pretty warm in here because it's a tight, cozy space. But I mean, you're locked up with your kids. You can give them an education, and you can also make it fun. Um, there's a lady named Kirsten Joy Weiss, and she has a channel called The Joy of Shooting on YouTube. Um, no, these are not paid advertisements. This is stuff that I've been looking at recently. And with her, she tries to promote it as a fun thing. And really, my favorite one out of all of her videos that I've seen so far is the one with the slingshot. Starmagia typed, I need to learn what you know. You're pretty damn cool, Sean. Yeah, I'm also, well, apparently crazy, according to most folks. When you push somebody to the point that I was pushed to, and a lot of other people pushed to over this, you know, you don't get to call them crazy for reacting in a way that is natural for a human being to react under that situation. If everybody else is allowed to be heard and you're not, there's a major issue. If everything that you could possibly use to defend yourself is taken away and your rights are different from everybody else's, when you're called mentally ill, your if you take a look at their protocol, when you're called mentally ill, their protocol is to assume your guilt right off the top. You try to turn in your rapist. You try to turn in your dad for beating on you. You try to turn in whoever it is that's stealing from you. You get called mentally ill. It's all done and over, especially if that officer is friends with the person. Or if you're in a small town and you're not the popular one. Popularity in a small town comes from two things, three things actually: family name, your looks, and your money. Um, family name in a small town like this often has more to do with looks and money. There's families in the area that you can tell who their kids belong to. You can pretty well tell their last name or their genetic lineage, like the Bondegards and Messigatus. Yeah, you can pretty well tell what family they're from. Um, we have a lot of old farmers here. Nebraska's biggest export is Nebraskans, but with the cost of everything right now, there's actually starting to be people coming back to small towns like this, we're looking at properties that sold for $17,000 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they're selling for $80,000 to $120,000 now. Or at least that's what people are asking for them. I don't see anybody really buying them. I've seen a few houses in town sell, but they're all pieces of crap that are falling apart, and they're $30,000 or less. What I'm trying to show you, though, is that there is a lot of other things that you need to worry about. There's a lot of things that you guys have this idea that, there's going to be all this stuff that you're going to carry around. It's heavy stuff that you're going to carry around with you. Ammo's heavy. Metal is heavy. It's all heavy stuff, and it all adds to your weight. Most homeless people will not carry a tent. If they do, it's from one campsite to another, and after that, it stays there. If you have to carry your day pack, you don't have a tent there, and the tent is usually something that you try to get someone who might have a vehicle. You give them a few dollars to take you to a campsite. You set up your tent there. But most homeless people don't have a tent. They have a campsite set up before they ever get a tent. And if it's a safe spot or the police don't harass them, then they might actually invest in getting a tent and stay in there a while. Um, when you're easy to railroad because of the color of your skin or because of a title like mentally ill, you don't have the rights that other people assume that you do. The experience that they have in their head and these doctored statistics that they're being thrown and shoved in their face all the time. Like, this is all crap that's coming from the news. And the news can't agree on the color of crap. Now that's sad, isn't it? And I hear all these excuses over and over and over again from these people who are uneducated in what it is that they're trying to do. You could easily learn about just a little bit of woodworking if you take the time to make yourself a box out of wood. You can learn how to do that just off the internet. You can get the tools off of the internet, have it sent right to you. A lot of you guys who are homeless don't have this ability, but you can see this video on your phone. I get that. Um, but you guys are actually not the ones these videos are for. Most of y'all who are homeless, you're actually well and set in case of an emergency scenario because you done seen it all. You've had to live in those situations, not camping as a family where you go up there with the station wagon and you got a whole back end filled with 10,000 pounds of crap that, oh my God. Yeah, when you're a homeless person, you got to carry it on your back. Now that's camping. Most homeless people do not have a tent. Most of them have a sleeping bag or a blanket. Some of them don't even have that. The reason that they don't have that is because in a lot of places that'll get you a ticket, that'll get you arrested, that'll get you being forced to do manual labor or be incarcerated. A lot of people, here's what you do if you're homeless. You learn very quickly that layering up is intelligent and hoodies will save your life. You can always take a layer off, but you can't put a layer on if you ain't got it. I own like this long sleeve shirt here, right? But then My jackets all have hoodies on them. I also have my Superman hoodie and my gray hoodie. Layers. Right now, I'm wearing 2 pairs of pants. That's what you learn to do when you're homeless. And those of you who aren't homeless, you might not even think of that until you're out there going, it's cold. Of course it's cold. Now, I was raised Christian. I wasn't raised by my parents, but when I did get to see them, my dad was atheist and my mom was Christian, and I chose Christianity. Now, my point of view is different. I still love the idea of it. Jesus is still my favorite character of any book ever, but it's difficult to put my lot in with a group of people who are either A, looking away like the Nazis did, or B, trying to twist the scripture to make it seem like doing evil things to human beings is okay, like the Nazis did, and like the slave owners did. You see how we're supposed to have a separation of church and state? We got all these politicians that are all of a sudden Christian when it's election time. Why is that? They want the votes, duh. There were a lot of people in Nazi Germany who were Nazis who thought that they were fighting for a workers' party. It's easy to dupe somebody that way. Here in America, we have trade unions. We have places that give work. It used to be that if you were injured on the job, your boss, like say you worked for Ford Motor Company, you got injured on the job, there'd be a certain amount of money that he would pay you and your family. And he didn't have to. He wasn't morally obligated or legally obligated to do that. It wasn't much. It wasn't enough to live on, and it wasn't going to last you the year. People have all these ideas and think that it's their place to judge. They think that it's their place to judge based on slander that nobody bothered to ever check. Why is it that none of these witnesses, who I was somehow magically able to get all of them to confirm the things that I was saying, but how come they couldn't get that to the police? In many of those conversations, they admitted that they tried. Now, it would be easy for me to go, you know what? I'm just going to become the next Ted Kaczynski. Is that a true statement? No, the fuck it isn't. People need to stop dying of stupidity. Let me give you an example. If you got somebody who doesn't know how to run a heavy crane and they start running a heavy crane, they've never done it before, and you just gonna put it in their hands, they're gonna be very dangerous. That is it's a crane. I'm not talking about the bird, I'm talking about the building implement. Or a backhoe. Another thing that is extremely dangerous if you don't know how to handle it, if you don't know how to use it. I want you to imagine now, a lot of you guys have seen in the movies where kids get into the vehicle and they can't see over the steering wheel and somebody else is screaming up at them, and this is, complete Hollywood fantasy or whatever. We know what happens in reality when that situation happens. There's an accident. Usually it's a low speed accident, into the neighbor's yard or the neighbor's whatever. But the fact is, it's still dangerous. It was a lot less dangerous back when everything was a stick shift. Back in the 1980s, you really didn't have to worry about a 6-year-old getting in your vehicle and somehow getting somewhere. He's not going to be able to get the thing started. If he is, he's not going to be able to keep it started. Good luck. A lot of people learned how to drive with a stick while sitting on dad's lap back in the 80s. The reason for that is because you couldn't reach the pedals. And he wanted you to still be able to see over the dashboard. So you weren't actually driving. You weren't. But you were learning a little bit of it at a time. A lot of folks have this expectation that people should automatically know because you know. They should automatically know this because it's something that you know. Or they should automatically know that because it's something that you know. Or the idea that somebody should just automatically believe you because you lived it. That's a tough one for a lot of victims. You're trying to explain what's going on. You're trying to explain about the abuse. And, well, many of us without support networks, we get blown off. We think that we have people that love us and are a support network, and it just doesn't happen. Now, there's two situations where that is extremely likely to happen. If you're not somebody who's got money, there's two situations where you're probably going to end up pretty well screwed. One of them is if you're not good looking, and that is terrible. If you're not good looking, you're more likely to get blown off. If you're not a good looking male or female, it's not a gender specific thing in that case. Gender does play a part, just as somebody's color does play a part. But when it all comes down to it, it's the looks that we're talking about, isn't it? Homeless people are victimized because Americans don't want to see poverty. They're fine with the literally billions of dollars that are wasted just so you don't have to see homeless people. You have all these great ideas of how to help them out, but then when the city council gets a hold of it and passes it on to the police, it's something completely different from the great ideas that you guys had. A lot of the laws that you guys tried to have passed in the past, they were passed by Congress, by the Senate, the president, the judicial branch. I mean, all of these people are like, yeah, we'll pass this, but we never bothered to implement any kind of, well, way to enforce that. How do we enforce law enforcement? How do we make sure that they're not lying to us? How do we make sure? Because as we all know, here's the saying that we like to spread around all the time: one bad apple can ruin the whole bunch. You guys, many of you, you target groups. When your group is targeted or one that you think is in the right is targeted, then you say it's wrong for you to target that group. But then it's not wrong for you to target the groups that you want to target, is it? Like, these people are defensive for a reason. You're defensive for a reason. You're all paranoid. You're acting on paranoia. You become impulsive when you're paranoid. And the difference between your paranoia and mine is that, well, mine is magically not justified, even though it's actually happening. And most of your paranoias are so far fetched that it's difficult for us, people with Asperger's, people who are high functioning adults, it's difficult for us to understand how you could actually believe this stuff. We can see the world for what it is. We see human emotions as human emotions. A lot of y'all, you want to say one thing and do another, have a different set of rules for you than for them, have punishment for them, but only God can judge you, right? You know, even if there were 30 good Nazis, right? According to what we would consider a good person, and according to what the doctrine that these people were sold was, which is it's for the workers, this is for the people, this is for our freedom, maybe 30 of them in the entire country of Germany through the entire war were ever actually good people like that. And we do see examples of this where German soldiers were sneaking out prisoners of war or turning off radar dishes or allowing air traffic to land on a runway, which allowed strategic positions of the Germans to be bombed. I mean, we've got examples of Germans at various concentration camps helping Jews to escape or getting Schindler's List. Now, Schindler's List is supposedly a true story, although some of the stories that are told in it are actually based on 3 or 4 different factories, not the actual death camps. That's the important part of that story, is that he was trying to save lives. So he would pull people out for work detail that he really didn't need them. He really didn't need them for work detail. He just knew where they were going if he didn't go to the depot there and stand on the platform when these people came off of those trains. He knew that just up the hill, they weren't going to anywhere good. And we keep forgetting that part of the education here. We say that what we're doing cannot be compared to Nazi Germany. Well, we've had a lot of years of refinement. Many of the lessons that we learned from Nazi Germany and many of the control methodology, this is stuff that is used on us to this day. A lot of the technological advances that the Germans made, they're so commonplace today that many of us don't even think of where they came from or why. We like to miseducate. We also like to, for some odd reason, when something is dangerous, we try to prevent somebody from getting educated on it. Well, if you're uneducated, you are really at a disadvantage when it comes to being around hazardous materials. If you're around firearms and you're not exactly safe about it, now let's say you never picked one up, but now you got a job cleaning a gun store and they're all over the place. You don't want to touch them, but you see all the dust bunnies behind them. You assume that they're not loaded. I mean, they're in a gun store. And you'd think that in that situation, you wouldn't get a job in a gun store, would you? Or at least you wouldn't want to. But you know what people say? Hey, you can't pick and choose, dude. If you need a job, you need a job. You need to get on it. You need to hustle. There's a lot of people I know who have had occupations that they didn't want to do. I've known a lot of women who have been prostitutes, even for just a short period of time in their lives. I mean, that's not something that they wanted to do. And we like to say that, well, there's all these jobs out there. And sure, there are all these jobs out there. But then we got to look at who's going to get hired. Are you going to hire that pretty young blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl who's skinny and was probably a cheerleader? Or are you going to hire the chunky girl or the chunky boy? Got pimples on their face, their teeth aren't straight, they didn't have the money for braces. The ones that you made fun of all throughout high school and junior high school and elementary school. But you say that we got to come up with nonviolent outlets, and we have all of these great ideas for nonviolent outlets, but those ideas don't work unless going to the people that you're telling us to go to works. If you're telling us to go to the police and the police aren't doing anything, you're telling us to go to the teachers and the teachers aren't doing anything. Restricted number. God, I hate those. All right, I suppose I should shut this video down here. I've been on a while. Star Magia typed, well, you're not crazy and you know it. I know it. And it will always be a fact no matter what anyone says. Jeannie Bell Black typed hugs. Jeannie Bell Black typed, I can't stay long, but I'll rewatch later, Sean. Take care. You take care too. Y'all be safe. I guess the point here, though, one of the great many points here is that I'm hoping you guys don't let your paranoia get the best of you. I'm hoping you don't focus all of your eggs in one basket as far as what you're learning. Right now, if you guys are stuck, locked up, you can't go out, you got to wear that stupid COVID 19 mask. You got electricity, though. You got the internet at your fingertips. There's a lot of stuff you can learn. There's a lot of stuff that you can look up. A lot of these things that you don't think that there's any kind of a situation where you might need it, mostly because you hate something that much. When you encounter a situation where you need that information, it's not there, and you're a hazard to all of us, not just yourself. You not being educated at all in firearms is not a safe situation for yourself or anyone around you. Please, above all else, when you got kids that you're giving these things to, that you're giving water pistols, squirt guns, cap guns, whatever it happens to be, rule number one needs to be not to ever point it at another human being. That needs to be taught no matter who you are. If you're in the military and they are training you something different, well, you're in the military. Out here, you don't need a whole lot of training. You need to know the basics so that you can wipe your own backside. You don't need to know how to make $1 million mansion. What you need to do is know how to make a waterproof shelter that isn't going to flood out when it rains. Right now, our focus is survival in the digital world. All of our lives are controlled digitally. Our purchases, all digital. All this stuff with all these cameras, digital. The sound, digital. Our entertainment, digital. Our electronics in our house, even our lights and our TV are run on digital stuff now. All of it, it's all digital. People don't know how to live in nature anymore, and they're afraid to do so because they don't want to get in trouble. Out here in Nebraska, you can go find a tree and pee behind it, and you're good. That'll get you in a lot of trouble in a cement jungle. I don't know if that's a regional thing or not. I did cover regional dialects and different terms that go with different disabilities or different areas or different languages or understandings. Like here in the United States with breaking bread. Apparently, in the Southeast, it means make money. Where I live, it means to have dinner with a guest. That's what breaking bread means. You're having dinner with them. Um, let's see. Jeannie Bell Black typed, yes, I miss analog. I miss the old days. I miss my old life. Yeah, a lot of us do. We can work together to get that, though. It doesn't take much to get land. And if we look at a lot of these ancient structures, they're lasting longer than the stuff that we built 10 years ago. This is my first-hand education. I can build every part of a house but the electrical. No, I can't tell you the name of every single thing. But I know what they're for. I know what the purpose is. I understand that wood and a lot of the other materials are going to have expansion and contraction rates that are based on the heat. A lot of this is because I've built every part of a house. I've never built an entire house, but I've helped with the foundations. I've helped dig the foundations. I've helped set in the plumbing. I've helped tear out the plumbing. I've helped build the foundations, the walls, and everything in, on, and around them at some point in my life. I've even helped out with electrical a lot. The thing is that I am not familiar with the complicated mathematics that go along with it. And I never, honestly, never bothered to try. There was a short period of time where there was an electronic gizmo that I was playing with. And much like now with you guys, you got a lot of time on your hands. Well, I had a lot of time on my hands. I was locked up. And that little electronics thingy, being able to make it so that it would make the raindrop sounds, is pretty cool. Let's see. Jeannie Bell Black typed, yep, we talked about cob houses. That's my dream. I've flouted tile and carpet, laid. Absolutely. The property I'm looking at in Colorado, it's in southern Colorado, and we could make exactly that. When I say we, I mean that I can't do it by myself. Also, for safety reasons, Colorado is scary for me, so I have to know and have written confirmation from somebody that actually has some clout that I will be safe, that I won't be harassed by police, that they are going to leave me alone. With a lot of these lawyers, the things that they kept on telling me in these phone calls, I kept on telling them, hey, I want that in writing. I want that in writing. You know how difficult that is? Lawyers always want everything in writing, don't they? I wrote a lot of stuff down that was ignored. When I wanted this stuff in writing, they seemed to have a lot of issues with finding it, locating it, or understanding plain and simple English. If they don't understand plain and simple English, and English is their first language, they probably should not be defending anyone in court, or pretending to, rather. Now, we've seen throughout history where it ultimately always comes down to violence. Always. Is that true? No, it's not. Great Britain, we, the United States, are the only ones to gain independence from Great Britain by conquest. We were the only ones to do so in battle. Everybody else, because people started to get some power a little bit, the people who have to do all the fighting and all of the dying started to get a little bit more power because of all of these situations where they refused, where they said, hey, you can go ahead and tell me that God ordained you, but you had to kill your brother or your dad to get that throne. And in those times in history, you end up with situations like, well, one of the many revolutionary wars that Great Britain itself had, or England itself. Seems they changed their name a lot. The UK, United Kingdom. We're dealing with a lot of stuff today that is older than we are. It was like this before we got here. All of the land was owned before we were born. Obviously, since we hadn't been born yet, it's owned by someone else. Some of us are vulnerable. We will never have the opportunities that you guys pretend that we have. Pretty people are quite fond of telling us that we have the same chances and opportunities that they do, and we don't. And rich people, same thing. People with families who give a shit, same thing. But what about those of us with none of those things? And a lot of folks who are in a really screwed up situation themselves, rather than being supportive and understanding, they want to be mean to you and use that as an excuse to be mean. I don't know how many people got a hold of me to tell me, well, you're not black. I know I'm not black. I'm not telling you about what Waylon Lolatai did to me because I'm trying to start or instigate a race war. I'm telling you this because it's something that was done to me that was wrong that I need help with. I don't have that support because I wasn't killed by the police. I don't get the support that George Floyd did. At the same time, George Floyd is dead. And I think this situation with George Floyd, as well as many of these killings before and since, they do need to be in the limelight. Something does need to be done about it. But it's not just people like George Floyd and Elijah McClain and Zaid Atkinson. Zaid Atkinson was confused with a homeless person. Elijah McClain was disabled. The people that the police kill the most, over half of them are disabled and almost half of them are homeless. Zaid Atkinson almost got himself shot, but not because he was black. It's because he wasn't the clean cut, good looking idea that rich people and cops in Boulder think of. They don't think of somebody with dreadlocks as prim and proper. Somebody with dreadlocks and work boots, well, that's even less of a human being there for some odd reason. It's not like that everywhere. I mean, here, yeah, they'll ostracize him as a hippie too for having that dread cut. But you look at Zaid Atkinson, you look at how his skin color and the narrative with that was more important than the actual truth. And that's because they wanted to win. Nobody cares about the homeless. You can't say, well, they thought I was a homeless person. Well, now, in a lot of Americans' eyes, you are now making excuses for your officers. You're making excuses for the officers who assaulted you. Oh, well, they thought I was a homeless person. Hold on a second. If that's the way that you're thinking about that situation, that means that you think it's okay to do that to a homeless person. And that is even more disturbing to me. All right. Jeannie Bell Black typed too much time. I'm getting ready to start making a squash blossom necklace. You need like minds to help with the land. You're a beautiful person, my friend. I gotta go. My son's here to take me to the grocery. Take it easy, Sean. Be safe, Jeannie Bell Black. When I say we, I mean we, the people, not just we, the people of the United States. There's poor people all over the world. We don't have to go killing people. We don't. We just need to stand together. If one person in Chapel, Nebraska says, "Hey, I'm not complying with this anymore," well, he stands zero chance whatsoever. He's just going to get railroaded. He's going to get pegged as mentally ill and pegged as a bad guy for speaking up and for saying, "I'm not going to take part in this evil anymore." But if you got 30 people in this town who all stand up at once and say, "We're not going to take this," we're not going to take it. No, we ain't going to take it. We're not going to take it anymore. All right, so I was butchering that song, making fun of it. But you seeing what I'm saying? 30 people is a good start. And I'm not talking about 30 armed people like Waco, Texas. That right there, you see how that's used to this day to justify and even glorify the actions of government officials that day. Nobody had to die. Nobody had to die. Am I saying that any of those people at Waco were right in listening to that wannabe Jesus feller? Well, no, I don't think that any of that was right. I don't think any of those people were thinking right in their heads. But also, they weren't going out and committing crimes with the firearms that they had, despite the fact that they weren't exactly right in their heads. They had to be instigated. They had to be instigated to use those things. If people are looking at the news and they're seeing all of these police and all of these judges and all of these lawyers and all of them doing all of this stuff that's killing American citizens here and nobody's doing anything about it, yeah, they're going to be paranoid. If they're being sold the narrative that it's happening to black people more than anybody else, yes, black people are going to be more scared than anyone else. The reality of the situation is that the people that need to be the most scared are the most vulnerable. The disabled and the homeless are the most vulnerable people in this country as far as adults go. And we all know that children are screwed. I grew up in the system in Colorado, mostly in Colorado. It doesn't matter where you go. Once you have that tag of mentally ill, you no longer have basic human rights. I always stuck up for the underdog. That's what we need to do. We need to stick up for each other. Instead of everybody scattering to the four wind when the popular bullies come in, we need to stand up to them. There are a lot more of us than there are of them. There's a lot more poor people than rich people. There's a lot more average and unattractive people physically than there are supermodels. There are a lot of just regular students for every cheerleader and for every football player. Look at the way that we glorify football over our education. And then look at how cheerleaders are looked at by the majority of the population. They are objectionalized, right down to the skimpy little dresses. We teach boys and girls differently pretty much wherever you go. Pretty much. But that doesn't mean that that's taught everywhere that you go. You can find a way to do it a different way. And that's a lot easier to do if you can do it safely. You can do it safely a lot easier if you're educated. And this ramble is over an hour long, so I'm going to let y'all have a good night. Star Magia type, yes, that's what I say all the time.